Keep the ruined hall, Marian. It has more empty stalls than you have customers. Cousin Edwin Vale delivered the insult as he pocketed her father's shop keys. His newly produced partnership paper gave him the grocery. Marian received Crown Market, £94 in unpaid rates, and a roof the borough had condemned. Refuse the deed, Edwin warned, and she would lose her father's weighing tools that night. Marian accepted because the paper carried her father's signature, drawn with a hesitation she had never seen. Inside the abandoned market, an empty delivery cart stood on the weighbridge. Marian had calibrated shop scales since childhood. The cart should have registered nearly 900 weight. Instead, the beam settled exactly at 0. She set her 7-pound brass standard on the platform. The beam moved by 7 pounds. When she removed it, the empty cart vanished from the measure again. Beneath the platform, Marian found a second iron lever traveling against the first. A copper token pinned its joint, stamped with 6 open palms. Footsteps crossed the dark arcade. Edwin stopped beside the gate. So you found what your father refused to sell? Marian closed her hand around the token. The market's debt was real. Edwin's fear of its scale was real too. Marian was 31, her chestnut hair pinned beneath a charcoal bonnet above a brown wool dress. He held out his gloved hand. Give me the token and the deed. I'll allow you £10 and another week above the shop. You said the hall was worthless. It is. The iron may cover part of the rates. Marian looked past him toward the cart. Rain darkened the paving, yet fresh grease coated the mechanism. Did my father come here before he died? Edwin's fingers closed. He wandered everywhere during those last months. Thomas Vale had grown weak, though his mind had stayed exact. 3 days before dying, he had corrected an invoice from memory and identified a missing half-ounce weight by sound. He had never formed the broken letter in the signature now giving Edwin the shop. Marian slipped the token into the inner pocket of her dress. Edwin's expression lost its amusement. The rate collector comes Monday. The borough hearing is in 14 days. When they close this place, every beam and railing will be sold. Then you needn't concern yourself. You have 8 shillings in your purse. She had 11, but his knowledge chilled her more than the lie. Edwin stepped close enough for her to smell the cloves he chewed. Your father kept you behind that counter because customers trusted your face. He never meant you to own anything. Marian held his gaze. For 18 years, she had balanced the shop books, tested incoming weights, and caught measures shaved thin at their rims. Edwin had spent those years entertaining commercial travelers and calling it partnership. You should leave, she said. He smiled again. By Monday you'll ask me for the £10. After he went, Marian found a lantern in the porter's cupboard and inspected the market. In October 1873, Crown Market occupied half a block near Marrowbridge's canal basin. 12 stone stalls faced the central arcade. 4 had lost their shutters. The north roof sagged above the fish tables, and a cracked gutter had soaked the plaster beside the counting room. The eastern weighhouse was sounder. Its slate roof leaked near the door, but the oak frame remained square. Marian measured the platform, checked the beam pivots, and sketched the opposing lever on the back of Edwin's rate notice. The copper token fitted no visible slot. Its 6 palms had been worn smooth at the fingertips. On its reverse, 6 shallow numbers circled a square hole. A knock came from the street gate. Mr. Ellison, the borough rate collector, waited with a leather case under his arm. He seemed embarrassed to find her there. I was told Mr. Vale held the property. Which Mr. Vale? He glanced at the deed. You understand that accepting this conveyance makes you responsible for the arrears? Yes. If £6 aren't paid Monday, I must begin distraint. The condemnation hearing concerns the North Arcade. The weighhouse can remain only if a qualified carpenter certifies it. Marian thought of her room above the grocery. Edwin would lock it before supper. Her mother's brooch might bring £3. Her calibrated weights and steelyard could bring more, though selling them would take away the only trade she fully knew. Mr. Ellison lowered his voice. You may still decline. I haven't entered the transfer. From the weighing platform came a soft iron click. The empty cart had settled against the stop again. Marian placed the deed on his case and signed the rate acknowledgement. Enter it, she said. Mr. Ellison sanded her signature. The grains covered Marian Vale in a pale, decisive line. By dusk, Edwin owned the shop without her. Marian owned the debt, the broken roof, and the scale he wanted dismantled. She barred Crown Market's gate from inside and carried her father's brass weights into the dry weighhouse. The brass weights made a clean row on the weighhouse table. Everything else Marian owned fitted into a carpet bag. Edwin's porter pushed through the gate. Her winter coat and 2 childhood account books were missing. "Mr. Vale says they belong to the business," the porter muttered. "He means Edwin." The man avoided her eyes. "I only carry what I'm given." Marian barred the gate again. She spread old sacking beneath the table, ate the heel of bread from her bag, and kept the lantern low. Rain struck the slate. Water crept under the door, stopping 2 feet from her father's weights. Near midnight, the delivery cart shifted on the platform. Marian sat up. The gate remained barred. No footsteps sounded in the arcade. A rear wheel had rolled into a shallow groove as rainwater washed grit from the stones. The weighing beam rose, dipped, and returned to 0. She held the lantern near the wheel. A brass stud protruded from the groove. When the iron tire pressed it, the opposing lever beneath the platform engaged. Marian pushed the cart forward 3 inches. The beam immediately registered its full weight. The mechanism responded to position, though that explained only part of the trick. A second stud lay beneath the other wheel. Their spacing matched the axle exactly. At dawn, Marrowbridge stirred around the locked market. Barges moved along the canal basin. Shopkeepers raised their shutters and watched Marian through the ironwork. She carried the deed to a pawnbroker and returned without her mother's garnet brooch. It brought £2 12 shillings. With her 11 shillings, she had barely more than half the sum due Monday. At the bakery, Mrs. Pyle named the price before Marian could request credit. "You Vales have had enough from this street," she said. "What did my father take from you?" Mrs. Pyle's hand stopped. "Ask the stallholders who lost their deposits when Crown Market closed. My father never owned the market. His name kept its accounts." Marian paid for the loaf. Outside, 2 women turned their baskets away from her. The only carpenter willing to enter Crown Market was Josiah Reed, a widower with a gray beard and 2 missing fingertips. He charged 1 shilling for an inspection and promised no certificate. Josiah tested the weighhouse posts with an awl. He climbed the eastern truss and came down carrying a strip of rotten wood. "This room can stand," he said. "The arcade is pulling north. 1 heavy gale could bring the middle rafters onto your scale. Can you brace it?" "With timber and 2 men, yes. £4 8. I need a certificate before Monday." "You need a roof before winter." Marian showed him her sketch of the opposing lever. His eyes moved across it, then toward the platform. "I'm certifying timber," he said. "I want no part of Vale machinery." "What happened here?" Josiah returned the paper. "Traders brought goods through this gate. Your father entered their weights. By week's end, some were paid for less than they delivered. Complaints disappeared. Then the deposits disappeared too." "Did you see him alter a weight?" "I saw families leave. He refused her shilling and walked out." By afternoon, Marian had cleared the eastern stall and opened both gates for light. An elderly vegetable seller pushed a barrow beneath the arch. Nancy Wren had brought onions to the grocery years before. She looked at the bare stalls and tightened her grip on the barrow. "I heard Thomas Vale's daughter had come to finish the stripping. I'm trying to keep the weighhouse standing." "Why?" "I don't know yet." The answer surprised them both. One of Nancy's wheel pins had worked loose. Marian fetched a hammer from her father's tool roll and reset it. Nancy offered a penny. Marian declined. "Your father weighed my cabbages light 3 market days running," Nancy said. "Did he operate this scale?" "He wrote the figures. Edwin called them out." Marian raised her head. "Edwin was here?" "Every Thursday until the market failed." Nancy's barrow used a narrower axle than the abandoned cart. Marian placed it on the platform with her permission. It registered 300 weight, 1/4, and £2. They removed the baskets and weighed them separately. The totals agreed. Marian aligned the left wheel with the first brass stud. Nothing changed. The right wheel stood 4 inches short of the second. Nancy watched her scrape mud from the paving. "What are those?" More brass points appeared beneath the dirt. They formed 6 pairs across the platform, each pair set to a different axle width. Marian took the copper token from her pocket. 6 numbers circled its center. Each number matched 1 pair of studs. 6 carts. 6 settings. 1 scale built to forget the vehicle and weigh only what it carried. "From the lane," Nancy whispered. "Thomas never told us it could do that." Marian turned the token between her fingers. Perhaps he never learned how. Nancy looked toward the grocery across Crown Lane. Edwin knew. That certainty gave Marian somewhere to begin. She asked Nancy to leave the barrow on the platform and help clear the remaining studs. A Roman numeral marked each pair. The abandoned delivery cart matched pair 4. Nancy's narrower barrow matched pair 2. The token's square hole fitted a spindle below the beam. Marian turned it until the number 2 faced upward. Iron moved beneath the platform. When they replaced Nancy's loaded barrow on its studs, the pointer showed 200 weight and 26 pounds. They unloaded the baskets. The vegetables alone weighed exactly the same. "That's my produce without the barrow," Nancy said. "That's what the mechanism removes." Then why did Edwin subtract the barrow again? Edwin's weekly figures had treated every load as if the scale showed gross weight. Traders had therefore lost the weight of their carts twice. Nancy gripped the platform. "For 5 years, I thought your father robbed me. He wrote the figures you saw?" "No." Edwin read the tickets. Thomas stayed in the counting room. Marian forced open the counting room shutters. Damp had swollen the desk drawers. The shelves were empty, but rows of pinholes remained where weekly sheets had hung. Nancy stood in the doorway. "Make that scale work tomorrow, and I'll bring anyone willing to listen. I can make it work. I can't promise they'll trust me. Neither can I." They spent the afternoon sweeping the eastern stalls and diverting the leaking gutter into pickle barrels. Nancy returned with a kettle, a blanket, and half a cheese. She called them alone. Before dusk, Marian cleaned all 6 standards beneath the beam. 5 moved freely. The 3rd selector had rusted in place. She soaked it with lamp oil and resisted forcing it. On Saturday morning, 7 former stallholders gathered outside Crown Market. Josiah Reed came last, carrying his awl and level. A poultry seller named Isaac Dunn spoke first. "Nancy says the old scale stole less than Edwin did." "I said Marian found how it worked," Nancy replied. Marian opened the gate. "Bring 1 empty cart whose weight you know." Isaac brought his poultry dray and claimed it weighed 600 weight. Marian measured its axle, aligned it with pair 5, and checked the platform with her father's standards. The beam was 2 pounds heavy at the far edge. "You said it worked," Isaac said. "It will after I correct it." Dried mud lay beneath the southern plate, and a retaining pin had bent near the pivot. Cleaning the plate removed 1 pound. Marian straightened the pin against Josiah's iron brace, reset it, and tested every corner. The empty dray disappeared at pair 5. 3 feed sacks placed inside registered 168 pounds. Isaac weighed each sack separately on Marian's steelyard. The figures agreed. Nobody applauded. Their silence carried more weight. Marian set an account book on the table. "Every load will be entered twice. The trader keeps 1 ticket. The market keeps the counterfoil. Either may request another weighing." "What will you charge?" asked a flour seller. 1 penny for a handcart. 2 pence for a dray. Stall rents are 3 shillings weekly until the North Arcade is safe. Nancy placed 12 shillings on the table. 4 weeks for the first eastern stall. Isaac did the same. 2 others paid 12 shillings each. The flour seller promised payment after Monday's trade and received no key. By evening, Marian had collected 2 pounds 8 shillings in rents and 7 shillings 9 pence in fees. She remained several shillings short. Josiah inspected the eastern truss again. Marian showed him the heavy standards moved away from the weakened wall and the unsafe stalls closed with rope. "You listened when I said the roof could fall," he said. "I prefer measurements to funerals." His mouth shifted beneath his beard. "I'll certify the weigh house and 4 eastern stalls. The paper won't cover the arcade. It's enough to trade." He charged 6 pence and returned the shilling he had refused. Sunday brought canal carriers who needed loads checked before Monday delivery. Marian worked by lantern, recording every tear and issuing paired tickets. Nancy kept the queue straight and challenged men who objected to waiting behind a woman's cart. On Monday morning, Marian counted 6 pounds onto Mr. Ellison's leather case. 3 pence remained in her purse. He examined Josiah's certificate and wrote a receipt. Across the lane, Edwin stood outside the grocery with his hands behind his back. Nancy raised the first stall shutter. Pale cabbages filled the boards where rainwater had stood 2 days earlier. "Accurate weight," she called. Written twice. For the first time in 6 years, Crown Market opened for trade. By 8 o'clock, 3 carts waited beyond the gate. By noon, the queue reached Crown Lane. Marian weighed each vehicle empty before selecting its axle setting. She wrote the gross load, tear adjustment, and final produce weight on paired tickets. One went to the trader. Its numbered counterfoil remained stitched into her book. Nancy watched Edwin's grocery while serving customers. He sent his boy past 4 times. Let him count. He'll count until he finds a number he can use against you. The day's fees came to 9 shillings 4 pence. Stall rents added nothing because Marian had accepted them in advance. From that money she paid 2 shillings for lamp oil, 8 pence for bread and dripping, and 3 shillings for second-hand timber Josiah found near the canal yard. He used the timber to brace the eastern passage. The work protected 4 stalls, though the north arcade still required new rafters, slate, and lead guttering. £18 if the weather holds, Josiah said. More if I find rot above the fish tables. Marian wrote the estimate beneath the £94 arrears. Her profitable first day had left 3 shillings 8 pence for the roof. Hope looked smaller when entered in ink. On Tuesday, she removed the swollen drawers from the counting room desk. Most contained mouse nests and rusted pen nibs. The lowest drawer held a strip of blue paper trapped beneath its rear runner. Water had erased the writing, but 6 small handprints remained along one edge. Each was numbered. Pinholes pierced the strip in the same pattern as those on the wall. Nancy leaned over Marian's shoulder. A child's game? The holes are too regular. Marian placed the strip against a fresh counterfoil. Its ruling matched the ticket column she had designed from memory, except the old form contained one additional column marked with a tiny open hand. The heading had washed away. She carried the fragment to Amos Bell, a printer whose shop stood beside the canal lock. He examined its watermark through the window. My father made these forms, he said. Crown Market ordered them by the thousand. Who collected them? Thomas Vale at first. Later, the younger man with the clove breath. Edwin. Amos nodded. He changed the order. Single sheets instead of counterfoils. Said duplicates confused the traders. When? 6 years ago. Perhaps 7. The market had closed 6 years earlier. Amos searched an old invoice index. A gap appeared where the crown orders should have been. The binding thread remained, but several leaves had been cut close to the spine. Who had access? Marian asked. Any customer standing at this counter. I never thought those invoices mattered. Marian returned to Crown Market with the blue strip wrapped in clean paper. Edwin waited inside the gate. He carried a solicitor's envelope and looked around at the occupied stalls. You've made a charming little spectacle. You removed the counterfoils. His gaze touched the parcel in her hand. Your father removed many things. Edwin offered her the envelope. A canal warehousing company would pay £25 for immediate surrender of the property. It would assume the remaining rates and give her 7 days to leave. Yesterday it was worth 10, Marian said. The business offer is generous. For condemned iron? For clear frontage. There it was. Crown Market joined the canal road to a loading yard behind the north arcade. Edwin wanted more than its beams. Marian folded the offer. Tell them no. His jaw tightened. The condemnation hearing may decide for you. After he left, Marian compared the blue ticket with the scale. The token selected 6 cart settings, yet the mechanism beneath the platform held only 5 visible counterweights. The rod for setting 3 passed through the foundation toward the counting room. She had assumed it ended beneath the desk. Josiah helped her lift the desk away from the wall. No rod emerged. Marian tapped the floorboards and heard solid joists until she reached a rectangle beside the old account chair. There, the sound changed. Hollow, Nancy said. Too shallow for a cellar, Josiah replied. Marian measured the foundation from the canal yard paving to the counting room sill. Inside, the floor stood 3 feet above the level of the weighbridge pit. The hollow space continued beneath the scale foundation. Josiah lowered himself beside the selector rod. Its iron surface carried fresh scratches. Someone pulled this recently, he said. Marian remembered the clean grease beneath the supposedly abandoned platform. They removed no boards. Any careless force might disturb the weighing mechanism or whatever supported the eastern wall. Josiah insisted on bringing lifting screws and shoring timber the next morning. At closing time, Marian turned the copper token to setting 3. The frozen selector resisted, then moved half an inch. Below the counting room, something heavy answered with 3 slow knocks. Marian released the token. The knocking stopped. She tried setting 3 once more. The same sequence followed. Resistance, movement, then 3 measured blows beneath the floor. Latches, Josiah said. Something is releasing in stages. They left the floor untouched until morning. Marian slept beside the platform with the copper token tied inside her sleeve. Josiah returned at first light with 2 lifting screws, oak blocks, and his nephew Peter. Closing the weighhouse cost Marian a morning's fees. The shoring timber cost 5 shillings more, payable at the end of the week. Nancy stationed herself at the gate. Anyone asks, the scale is being certified. It already was, Marian said. Then it's being certified better. Josiah removed 4 floorboards without cutting them. Beneath the joists lay a lime-washed brick chamber barely 4 feet high. Its ceiling supported the counting room desk and the eastern edge of the weighing platform. A narrow iron ladder descended beside the selector rod. Marian carried down the lantern. The chamber was dry. Air entered through a copper pipe hidden inside the weighhouse wall. Tarred cloth protected the joints, and every iron surface carried a thin coat of grease. A second balance beam stretched beneath the platform. 5 short arms connected to the visible counterweights. Setting 3 operated a longer rod leading to a suspended iron block. 3 hooked catches held that block at different heights. Each catch had produced one of the knocks. Marian turned the token above while Josiah watched below. The catches released in order. The iron block rose and removed the exact weight of a narrow 2-wheeled cart. It was built to subtract the vehicle, Marian said. Josiah studied the linkage, without asking the clerk to calculate it, without allowing the clerk to change it. That difference mattered. 6 brass axle gauges hung on the chamber wall. Their widths matched the studs above. A plaque beneath them read, "Registered carriage tear. Goods alone shall be entered." Someone had struck a chisel through the maker's name. At the rear stood 6 shallow iron cupboards. Open palms were painted on their doors. 5 hung empty. The 6th remained locked and bore a square collar surrounded by 2 keyholes. Marian inserted her copper token into the collar. It turned halfway. A bar moved inside the door, then stopped. 2 more keys, Josiah said. Or 2 witnesses. The blue ticket fragment used 6 hands, and the cupboard required more than 1 person to open it. Crown Market safeguards had been designed around shared control. A slate calibration board rested beneath the cupboards. Most entries had been wiped away, though fresh figures remained in one corner. Marian recognized her father's narrow 7s and the way he crossed a final total twice. He had tested all 6 tear settings 9 days before his death. Beside setting 3, Thomas had written, "Selector sound. Duplicate deduction continues upstairs." Below that, another line ended where someone had scraped the slate with a knife. Nancy crouched at the opening above. What did he find? That Edwin was subtracting the cart after the mechanism had already removed it. The accusation against Thomas had protected the man reading out the false totals. Marian's relief lasted only a moment. Her father had known. He had left the traders blaming him, and he had died before telling his daughter why. On the floor below the slate lay a brass screw and 2 curls of fresh iron. Josiah examined the locked cupboard. Someone tried drilling the lower keyhole, he said. Recently. The scratch marks on the selector rod and the fresh grease belonged to the same visit. Thomas had restored the mechanism. Another person had entered afterward and attempted the cupboard. Marian searched the chamber without disturbing the fittings. 5 rectangular spaces on the shelves held clean outlines where metal boxes had once stood. In the dust beneath them, she found a torn blue paper corner. 3 words remained. Deposits held jointly. Nancy read them and sat back on her heels. "The stall deposits," she said. "People lost 20 years of savings." The chamber proved how the scale worked. It also showed that records, keys, and 5 deposit boxes had been removed. A shadow crossed the floor opening. Edwin stood in the counting room beside Peter. He looked down at Marian, then at the locked cupboard. "You've damaged property named in the shop partnership," he said. "This chamber belongs to Crown Market. The contents belong to its keeper." "My father?" Edwin's eyes settled on the copper token. Thomas possessed only 1 hand. That was never enough. He left before Marian could climb the ladder. Inside the 6th cupboard, a loose metal object shifted after the vibration of his footsteps. The remaining records were inches away. 2 witness keys stood between Marian and whatever her father had failed to open. Marian climbed from the chamber, but Edwin had already crossed Crown Lane. She locked the copper token in her carpet bag and asked Josiah to replace every floorboard. Peter drove the final nail before noon. The cupboard remained below them with its loose contents and 2 empty keyholes. The next morning, Constable Harris entered Crown Market with Edwin at his shoulder. Peter was repairing a shutter beside the eastern stalls. Harris asked him to empty his apron. Nails, chalk, a folding rule, and an iron key fell onto the counter. Peter stared at it. "That isn't mine." Edwin picked up the key before Harris could stop him. Its bow carried an open palm and the number 2. "That was locked inside my document drawer," Edwin said. "The boy stood beside me yesterday." "He was working here all morning," Josiah replied. "He had time to cross the lane." Marian remembered Edwin standing beside Peter above the open chamber. His hand had rested briefly against the boy's shoulder as he leaned down. Harris wrapped the key in his handkerchief. "Does it belong to the cupboard?" "Yes," Edwin said. "You claimed the cupboard belonged to the shop," Marian replied. "Why would its key be in your private drawer?" Edwin's smile hardened. "Because Thomas left his business property where it could be secured. He requested that Harris test the key. Marian could have allowed it. One witness lock would open, leaving only the third key between her and the records. The cupboard might contain enough to stop the warehouse sale." Peter's face had gone white. Using the key would also accept Edwin's account of how it reached the market. "No," Marian said. "Seal it as evidence." Edwin turned toward her. "You would leave your father's papers locked away for a thief?" "For an honest examination." Harris placed the key in a paper packet and marked the fold with his seal. Edwin waited until the constable moved aside. "Sign the surrender offer, and I'll withdraw the complaint. The boy goes back to his tools. You keep £25. Josiah stepped forward, but Marian answered first. "Peter's name isn't yours to sell." The constable took Peter to the borough office for a statement. Josiah followed. Marian closed the market because Nancy could manage only her stall. She could neither certify weights nor sign tickets. A closed day meant no weighing fees. Marian also carried 15 shillings from the roof fund to Mr. Caleb Arkwright, a solicitor known for defending canal workers. He listened without interrupting and wrote down every person present when Edwin entered the counting room. "Your cousin has made a criminal accusation," he said, feeling certain won't answer it. "What will?" "Custody, opportunity, motive, and a witness willing to be disliked." Nancy gave her statement before midday. She had seen Edwin place one hand on Peter's shoulder. She had also seen his other hand emerge from his coat near the boy's apron. "I didn't understand it then," she said. "Now I do." Josiah entered a recognizance for his nephew's return. Harris released Peter pending the magistrate's review, but the accusation remained against him. Rain began before they reached Crown Market. Without the tarred canvas Marian had planned to buy, water poured through the north arcade. It spoiled a stack of empty produce baskets and loosened plaster above the flower stall. The seller demanded her promised space remain dry by Monday. "I can return your deposit," Marian said. "I haven't paid one." "Then I can promise only the eastern stall after Nancy's month ends." The woman left angry. 2 waiting carters followed her across the lane when Edwin's clerk offered free weighing behind the grocery. By evening, Marian's choice had cost 15 shillings, a full day's fees, 1 future tenant, and the money intended to cover the roof. Peter stood at the gate with his tool apron folded under his arm. "You should dismiss me," he said. "People won't trade where they think a thief works." "Did you take the key?" "No." "Then come tomorrow." He swallowed and nodded once. Nancy had remained beside the sealed evidence packet at the borough office until Mr. Arkwright finished copying its markings. She now unfolded his sketch on the weighing table. The key's open palm had a narrow silver seam across its wrist. Nancy touched the line. "My mother broke her market key in that exact place. Josiah's father repaired it with a silver pin." "Your mother held a witness key?" "She kept it in a flour tin after Crown Market closed. The tin vanished when Edwin came to collect our final account." The key had never belonged in Edwin's document drawer. He had possessed a trader's missing key and planted it on Peter after seeing the chamber opened. Marian could not use it now. Harris's seal protected both Peter and the evidence. Below the floor, one of the cupboard's 3 locks finally had a name. Hester Wren. Hester Wren's name changed the accusation, though it did not end it. Mr. Arkwright asked the magistrate to dismiss the complaint against Peter. Edwin's solicitor argued that Hester's key had lawfully passed to Thomas as market keeper and then into the grocery partnership. The magistrate refused to decide ownership during a theft review. Peter remained free under Josiah's recognizance. The sealed key stayed with Constable Harris. Outside the court, Edwin adjusted his gloves. "You spent your roof money to postpone the obvious. You planted a dead woman's key on a boy. Prove it before the market falls." Over the next 6 days, Marian tried. She reopened the 4 eastern stalls and restored paired weighing tickets. Nancy persuaded Isaac Dunn to return. Amos Bell printed 50 counterfoil sheets on credit after Marian showed him the surviving blue fragment. Each evening, Marian divided the receipts. Food received the smallest share. Josiah's shoring debt came next. Everything remaining went into a tin marked North Roof. By Wednesday, the tin held £1 11 shillings. Josiah's estimate remained £18. The borough surveyor arrived that afternoon. Edwin and a representative from Marrowbridge Canal Warehousing accompanied him. The surveyor accepted Josiah's eastern certificate. He also found the north truss had shifted another inch. Water had softened mortar above the central gate, the only entrance wide enough for loaded drays. "I can build a temporary entrance through the canal yard," Josiah said. "For what cost?" the surveyor asked. £6 if the rear wall is sound." Marian looked at her roof tin. The warehouse representative examined the rear wall before she could answer. "That yard forms part of our proposed frontage." "It forms part of Crown Market," Marian said. "Title is disputed." The condemnation hearing opened Thursday beneath the same guild clock where Edwin had once registered market totals. Marian brought Josiah's certificate, her new counterfoil book, the blue ticket fragment, and statements from 11 traders. Edwin brought the grocery partnership paper. Its schedule listed all weighing apparatus, account furniture, keys, papers, and market deposits as assets entrusted to Thomas Vale. A second clause allowed the senior partner to recover those assets wherever found. Marian saw her father's hesitant signature beneath the clause. "That schedule wasn't attached when he signed," she said. Edwin's solicitor raised an eyebrow. Miss Vale accepted the same signature when she accepted Crown Market. The committee chairman examined the survey. He praised Marian's accurate tickets and called the restored trade encouraging. Then he read the safety finding. The public could not enter through a wall at risk of collapse. The borough ordered Crown Market closed until a safe entrance and certified roof protection were completed. Marian stood. "The market earns enough to fund repairs if it remains open. It cannot remain open to fund the work that makes opening lawful," the chairman said. The remaining rates amounted to £88. Her £6 payment had delayed collection, not cancelled the debt. Because the property no longer produced lawful income, the committee authorized a rate sale in 10 days unless Marian paid the balance or obtained a secured repair bond. The warehouse company offered to discharge the arrears immediately if the borough delivered clear possession after the sale. Edwin did not look at Marian. He watched the chairman write. Mr. Arkwright requested time to examine the market's trust status. Edwin's solicitor answered that no trust deed had been produced, no trustees were registered, and the only surviving keeper's papers belonged to the grocery partnership. The chairman allowed 10 days. No more. A borough clerk accompanied Marian back to Crown Market. Traders carried away baskets, cages, sacks, and the flowers that had finally appeared on the eastern boards. Nancy removed her cabbages one at a time, refusing Peter's help. Marian took her carpet bag and calibrated weights from the weigh house. Mr. Arkwright already held the copper token and blue fragment for safekeeping. The chamber and locked cupboard remained beneath the floor. The clerk sealed both gates and posted the sale notice where Nancy's price board had hung. Edwin waited until the others left. £25 was kindness. At auction, you'll receive nothing after rates. Then why are you still bargaining? His eyes moved toward the canal yard. Marian followed his glance. The warehouse surveyor had marked a proposed loading road across the rear boundary. Its line passed directly over the hidden calibration chamber. Heavy wagons would crush the vault even if the market building survived. Edwin tipped his hat and crossed to the grocery. Marian stood outside the sealed gate with 3 pence, no roof, no income, and 10 days to prove that Crown Market had never been his to sell. Nancy took Marian home above her vegetable shed. Before sleeping, Marian listed every dated clue: the 1,849 seal, 6 numbered hands, Hester's repaired key, and the printer's missing counterfoil orders. The year led them to the Mechanics' Institute. Bound copies of the Marrowbridge Chronicle contained an 1,849 notice announcing Crown Common Market. It named 6 subscribing traders and assigned each a numbered carriage setting. Hester Wren held number 2. Rebecca Dunn held number 5. Isaac Dunn read his aunt's name twice. She left me a palm-headed key. I thought it opened a cash box we never found. He returned carrying a dark iron key from his poultry accounts tin. The number 5 remained beneath years of soot. Mr. Arkwright took both findings to the magistrate. With 6 days remaining before the sale, he obtained an order preserving any records beneath Crown Market. Constable Harris brought Hester's sealed key. The borough clerk brought the gate seal. Edwin attended with his solicitor and objected to every step. Marian inserted the copper token. Nancy turned Hester's key. Isaac turned Rebecca's. The cupboard opened. Inside lay a blue register, a rolled engineering drawing, an executed trust declaration, and a bank receipt for 5 deed boxes. 3 signatures or marks appeared beneath every major instruction. No keeper could withdraw money, alter a tear, or dispose of property alone. The declaration named the Crown Common Measure Trust. 6 women traders had purchased the market site in 1849 after repeated losses to private weighing clerks. A local scale maker built their automatic tear system from measurements the women collected themselves. The engineering drawing showed 6 standardized carts and the opposing levers Marian had restored. A printed instruction required paired tickets. Traders received the true goods weight before any buyer calculated payment. Nancy traced Hester's mark. They built it because nobody believed their figures. They built it so belief wasn't required, Marian said. The trust owned Crown Market, its scale, the canal yard passage, and 2 small cottages behind the loading road. A keeper managed daily accounts for wages. Thomas had never owned the property. He could neither transfer it into the grocery partnership nor leave it to Marian as a private inheritance. Her deed conveyed only his disputed keeper's interest and responsibility for the neglected premises. Edwin had given her a liability he assumed would collapse before anyone discovered the trust beneath it. The canal yard covenant explained his urgency. Any warehouse using the rear loading road owed the market an annual passage rent. 6 unpaid years totaled £84. Edwin's proposed sale would have buried the vault and presented the warehouse company with supposedly clear frontage. The blue register also recorded stall deposits and a repair reserve. Its final entry directed all 5 deed boxes to Marrowbridge Savings Bank after the market closed. At the bank, the magistrate's order and 3-part custody opened those boxes. They contained deposit certificates, cottage leases, duplicate weighing tickets, and correspondence from Thomas. The securities and accumulated interest amounted to £63. They could not make Marian rich. They could repay surviving depositors and begin the roof repairs exactly as the trust required. The duplicate tickets revealed Edwin's method. He had read correct net weights from Thomas, altered the figures given to buyers, and entered the difference as grocery wastage. Amos Bell's invoices showed when Edwin canceled the duplicate forms. Grocery account extracts traced the resulting profit. The last envelope bore Marian's name. Thomas had lodged it 9 days before his death. She read it alone at Mr. Arkwright's table. Thomas admitted discovering Edwin's fraud too late. When traders complained, Edwin threatened to accuse Marian of falsifying the grocery books. Thomas remained silent and let suspicion settle on himself. He moved the trust boxes to the bank, kept the scale from being dismantled, and began assembling proof. His silence protected Marian's employment for a few years and cost other families their livelihoods. He asked for no forgiveness. The partnership signature had been genuine when Thomas placed it on a 2-page agreement. Edwin later added a 3rd schedule claiming the market assets. Thomas had marked the original pages with paired pinholes before signing. The added schedule carried none. Marian laid the letter beside the blue ticket fragment. Her father had taught her to distrust any account with only 1 copy. He had broken that rule when fear reached his own counter. She left the bank with the trust declaration, certified copies, and Thomas's original letter under Mr. Arkwright's custody. 4 days remained. Crown Market was never hers to save alone. Under the declaration, 3 qualified stallholders could reconstitute the trustees and appoint a keeper. Nancy and Isaac had inherited 2 numbered hands. The blue register named the 3rd surviving line, Miriam Pyle, mother of the baker who had refused Marian credit. Marian crossed Crown Lane and entered Mrs. Pyle's bakery before the morning loaves came from the oven. The baker listened without offering her a chair. "You want my name because the trust requires 3, she said. "I want you to read what your mother signed." Marian placed a certified copy of the blue register on the flour table. Miriam Pyle's mark appeared beneath the rule requiring paired tickets. Beside it stood her contribution of £11 to the original repair fund. Mrs. Pyle read Thomas's letter next. "This doesn't return what people lost. No. It doesn't make him brave. No." The baker folded the copy. "If I serve, the deposits are repaid before anyone draws wages." Marian agreed. Nancy, Isaac, and Mrs. Pyle signed the trustee declaration that afternoon. Mr. Arkwright lodged it with the borough clerk and obtained a hearing before the scheduled sale. The committee moved the proceeding to Crown Market because the weighing mechanism could not be carried safely. On sale morning, traders filled Crown Lane. The auctioneer waited beside the sealed gate with his catalog closed. The borough surveyor admitted the committee, the magistrate, the bank manager, and both solicitors. Josiah's temporary shoring protected the eastern route. Edwin stood near the counting room door with the warehouse representative. Marian began with the empty delivery cart. She aligned its wheels with pair 4 and turned the copper token. The beam settled at 0. She placed a 56-pound standard in the cart. The scale showed 56 pounds. Then she moved the selector to pair 5. The scale registered the cart and the standard together. At the chairman's request, the surveyor selected Nancy's barrow and a sealed 28-pound burro weight. Marian measured the axle and used pair 2. The scale showed 28 pounds. The surveyor broke his seal and confirmed the standard. "This mechanism removes only a registered vehicle's fixed weight," Marian said. "The goods remain measured. 3 custodians control its standards, records, and reserve." She displayed the engineering drawing, axle gauges, and plaque from the chamber. The bank manager produced the trust declaration and 5 deed boxes under the magistrate's order. Mr. Ellison supplied old rate books naming the Crown trustees before Edwin changed the account after closure. The rear passage and cottages remained listed as trust property. Edwin's solicitor argued that Thomas had absorbed the trust property into the grocery partnership. Mr. Arkwright laid the partnership agreement beside Thomas's letter. Marian aligned the first 2 pages. Paired pinholes passed through both sheets at 4 corners. The third schedule had no holes and carried paper from Amos Bell's later invoice order. Amos testified that Edwin had collected the single-sheet forms and that pages covering those orders were cut from his index. "The schedule was attached afterward," Marian said. "Like the missing counterfoils, it left one version where there should have been 2. Edwin stepped forward. "Thomas controlled the market books. His daughter admits it." Nancy answered from the front row. Thomas wrote, "You called the weights." Isaac and 4 other traders confirmed the same practice. The bank boxes supplied their duplicate tickets. Each showed a correct net weight before Edwin's second deduction. The warehouse representative examined the canal yard covenant. His company's earlier use of the passage had continued after Crown Market closed. 84 pounds in rent remained due to the trust. He turned to Edwin. "You represented this frontage as unencumbered." Edwin's composure finally slipped. "The covenant was abandoned with the market." "The deed says it survives closure," Mr. Arkwright replied. Constable Harris produced Hester Wren's sealed key. Nancy identified its silver repair. Josiah identified his father's work. Harris read Edwin's original complaint, claiming the key had been locked in his private document drawer. "If it was Hester Wren's missing trust key," the magistrate asked, "how did it enter your drawer?" Edwin looked toward his solicitor. No answer came. The magistrate dismissed the complaint against Peter. He ordered Edwin's false accusation, altered partnership schedule, removed printer records, and diverted weighing profits referred for criminal inquiry. A receiver would preserve the grocery accounts until their ownership and losses were determined. The committee recognized the reconstituted Crown Common Measure Trust. The bank reserve and passage rent could lawfully discharge the 88-pound rate balance, repay verified deposits, and fund essential repairs. The rate sale was canceled. Outside, the auctioneer tied his unused catalog with string. Edwin attempted to leave through the eastern gate. Constable Harris stopped him long enough to serve the magistrate's summons. Marian did not watch him read it. She stood beside the weighbridge while Mrs. Pyle, Nancy, and Isaac signed the first new counterfoil together. The cart remained on the platform. Empty, it weighed nothing. The evidence it carried had proved heavier than Edwin's single account. Mrs. Pyle's condition became the trustee's first resolution. Verified stall deposits were repaid before Marian received a wage. Some went to traders who had waited 6 years. Others passed to sons and daughters carrying faded receipts from kitchen drawers. The warehouse company paid the 84-pound passage arrears into the trust account. 4 pounds from the reserve cleared the remaining rates. The rest funded deposit claims, emergency shoring, and the first slate order. Crown Market stayed closed for 7 weeks. The trustees refused to spend the deposit fund on cosmetic work. After the eastern structure passed inspection, they obtained a 5-year repair loan secured by cottage rents and future passage fees. The northern arcade would reopen only when each completed section received Josiah's certificate. Josiah rebuilt the canal yard entrance before touching the main roof. That route kept heavy carts away from the calibration chamber. He replaced the north truss in sections, using hired men and timber paid for as each bank certificate matured. Marian recorded every nail, day's labor and meal allowance. Copies hung beside the gate where anyone could inspect them. When the eastern stalls reopened, Nancy returned first. Isaac followed with poultry and feed. Mrs. Pyle rented the corner board for bread, though she still required Marian to pay for each loaf. That is how accounts remain friendly, she said. Peter came back wearing the same tool apron Edwin had used to accuse him. Josiah placed him in charge of repairing 6 registered carts from the original drawings. Each cart received a numbered axle plate and a separate owner's record. Marian trained 2 market girls to measure axles, test the beam, and prepare counterfoils. Neither handled a trader's money alone. Every Saturday, one girl checked the other's additions while Marian inspected the standards. The market earned from stall rents, honest weighing fees, cottage leases, and the restored passage covenant. Low weekly rents gave hawkers access to covered trade. A small share of every fee entered a repair reserve that required 3 signatures for withdrawal. Edwin's case took 8 months. The receiver found altered grocery books, diverted market payments, and the missing printer invoices inside a locked dispatch box. At the county sessions, Edwin was convicted of using the altered partnership schedule and falsifying commercial accounts. He received a custodial sentence and an order of restitution from his remaining business interest. Peter's accusation was removed from the borough record. Josiah kept the magistrate's dismissal in the workshop until Peter completed his apprenticeship. The grocery was sold under the receiver's accounting. Marian could have used her restitution share to bid for it. She declined. "I spent 18 years behind that counter," she told Nancy. "I don't need to prove I can return." She used part of the money to redeem her mother's brooch and replace the winter coat Edwin had withheld. The remainder went into a private savings account beyond the trust's funds. Thomas's letter stayed in the sealed history box with the altered agreement and duplicate tickets. Marian did not display it as an excuse. When traders asked, she said he had preserved evidence after failing to speak soon enough. 18 months after the hearing, the last scaffold came down. The rebuilt North Arcade held 12 dry stalls. Rainwater flowed through new gutters into Marian occupied 2 modest rooms above the canal gate and paid the same published rent required of any tenant. The trustees appointed her salaried keeper for a 3-year term, renewable only after an open account review. She accepted without surrendering her right to vote as a trader. On the first anniversary market day, 6 restored carts stood across the arcade. Their axle widths differed, yet each fitted its numbered brass studs. Nancy placed her empty barrow on pair 2. The beam returned to 0. Her cabbages registered exactly when loaded. A buyer received 1 ticket. Nancy kept its twin. Nearby, Peter showed a new apprentice how the opposing lever moved beneath the platform. Mrs. Pyle sold warm rolls from the corner board. Isaac argued over the price of feed without questioning its weight. Marian closed the blue register after the final entry. Her father's brass standards rested in a locked glass case beside the working set, preserved as tools rather than relics. Above the weighbridge, 6 open palms had been repainted in their original colors. Beneath them, the market displayed its weekly income, repairs, deposits, and reserves on paired sheets. Marian rang the market bell once. 6 carts rolled forward, and every trader left Crown Market carrying the same figures the keeper had written.